Hey Raghunath, tell everyone about our Patreon community.
Sure, Kaustubha. The Wisdom of the Sages Patreon community is an incredible online yoga resource. If you like the type of yoga wisdom and culture we share on the show, then our Patreon community is a great next step. This is a listener-supported podcast, and any level of sponsorship will unlock a wide range of live and archived classes, talks, and even workshops.
Raghunath teaches, I teach, and we have a host of other excellent teachers on topics ranging from yoga philosophy, asana classes, storytelling, Ayurveda, kirtan, cooking, meditation, and a lot more.
We even have an incredible online Bhakti 12-step recovery group.
So if you want to check it out, go to patreon.com/wisdom of the sages.
All right, let's get it on.
Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Live from Pokhara, Nepal, this is Wisdom of the Sages, a daily yoga podcast with your host, Raghunath, and co-host and senior educator at the Bhakti Center in New York, Kaustubha Das. Welcome to the show, and welcome to Nepal. Can you guys hear me okay? I am 9,000 to 11,000 miles away from you.
Yes, we can hear you fine.
Awesome. It's great to see everybody. I feel so guilty looking at all these faces that we haven't been able to check in. The internet has been incredibly patchy in the entire country, even in the cities. But we've been up in the mountains for, the last 6 days. So we just finally got back to civilization. And I'm so happy to do the show again. And I really apologize for not being regular with everybody.
Everybody's okay, Raghu. We understand. And we appreciate your efforts to be here this morning.
Thanks. We have a super group, and it's 5:49 in the morning, or in the evening right now. And you guys are just waking up, but I can tell you what's going to happen already. I'm living in the future over here. I'm like hours ahead of you guys.
Okay.
If you only knew what's about to happen to you. Isn't that a weird concept? You have different sets of time.
Very weird, Raghu.
Right now. And if this went on farther and farther, I might be like a year ahead of you guys. I could tell you like who's running for president and who died before you guys even find out. Time is so fascinating.
Thank you for sharing that insight. You're since you've
very deep insight here.
Since you've gone to the mountains of Nepal, you're just gushing forth with deeper philosophical thought.
It's true. And we're about to wind up this trip. And then me and Janeshwar and the King of Hearts and my son, we're going to go up to Muktinath, which is a very ancient holy place. And that's where the Kali Gandaki River flows. And we're going to go in there. We got the blessings to go and get some shalagrams. If you're unfamiliar with that, Kaustubha I know is, but shalagrams, usually when they have this deity worship within like Hinduism, where they have the Krishna deity, the priest does this special prana pratishtha, I think it's called, where they call the god into the murti or into the statue. And there's a whole elaborate ceremony. But with these stones, they say that the stones from this river are non-different than Krishna. You don't have to do any type of installation or ceremony. And they're very, very special. And the only way to get them if a holy person gives them to you, or if you go there yourself and get the blessings from your teacher to go grab them. And it's a very remote place, way up high in the Himalayas. And it's amazing that, we're going through such like hoops to get there now, but there's sadhus from all over India, including a lot of our great masters from hundreds of years ago, like Gopal Bhatt Goswami, who went to the Himalayas to travel there by foot. Can you imagine traveling by foot anywhere? That's how people got around. I don't think they had horses. I don't think they did horses then. I think they just went by foot. It's quite fascinating.
Yes, people walked in the past.
People walk. When I go to New Jersey, you walk to New Jersey. And there's no bridge. There's no George Washington Bridge.
They had
You
boats.
pay in the boatman.
Yeah.
Well, remember when we used to go to Mayapur and we wanted to go to Navadvip, which is across the Ganga? We'd have to sit there at the edge of the water bank and wait for the boat guy to come. It was like, and he'd push you across with not like a motorboat. Now I think they have motorboats, but then they had like a guy with a stick and a boat and a paddle, and that's how we crossed the river. It was like living hundreds of years before.
The things you're taking fascination in, Raghunath.
I appreciating.
Yeah.
I mean, we were up in the Himalayas. These people, it's like, we're wondering, they have these villages in the Himalayas. Are like, are these people ever leaving these villages? And if they are, it's a haul. And it looks like the roads are relatively new. They were probably trails 25 years ago. It's hard to believe they're so isolated. But it's been breathtaking. And I tell you, when you see the mountain, because it was foggy and smoky for the first few days, and it's sort of like, okay, this is cool. It's beautiful. There's beautiful little stone houses. There's a yak. There's water buffalo walking around. There's steep cliffs. And then one day we woke up and we saw Annapurna, which is, when you see it, you can't stop looking away. You're like mesmerized by something incredibly spectacular. And it's as if this is what it must be to become fully God conscious. It's like you're in Maya, there's a veil, and God is right in front of your face. And then all of a sudden, you become enlightened. You become the bodhisattva. The curtain gets pulled, and you are just mesmerized. That is like the perfect analogy. That's what's going on.
What is Annapurna?
Annapurna is one of the, it's one of the expeditions. There's regular trekking that we're doing, and then there's expeditions when they go up. So Annapurna is how many meters? 27,000 feet. And it's one of those ones that more people have been killed at Annapurna trying to get to the summit. It's one of those massive, they're sacred. They're all sacred mountains, but man in our divine arrogance, we're like, I'm going to conquer Everest. I'm going to conquer this. And it's one of those ones that just takes people down. But to look at it is like breathtaking. It's one of the big peaks of the world.
Beautiful. I saw some of the photos.
Yeah, the photos. I mean, the photos are incredible. Looking at the photos, but if you want to see those photos, follow me at Raghunath Yogi to see our photos from the trip. They're really quite breathtaking. And to be on a spiritual pilgrimage where the backdrop is just simply breathtaking, it assists the entire journey. You feel so connected to nature and holy people. And we're just sandwiching the whole experience with kirtan in the evening and kirtan in the morning. And then it's been quite wonderful. Yeah.
Beautiful. So then you must be, having gained deeper spiritual experience up there, you must be ready to take some questions today.
You know what? I have become, and I didn't want to share this publicly, but I guess I will. I'm enlightened. I was enlightened up there.
All right.
I'm a new man, and it's great. It's really good to be enlightened. I really recommend it, and I wouldn't want to have it any other way. And I'm over all this stuff. There is no question. It's all just what it is. How about that? Drop the mic. I'm out of here.
All right.
You're like, I don't believe you.
All right. You ready for question number one?
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm going to do less talking. Let Mara ask some of those questions if you don't.
Well,
we're still a little.
But you won't hear it if Mara asks the question, so I've got to read the question for you.
Okay.
So just so that everybody knows, we're taking Raghunath's connection isn't good enough to work through Zoom, so he's calling me through WhatsApp, and I'm holding the phone up to my microphone. So that's there might be a little delay in our conversation, and I'll have to read Raghunath's questions to him. This one is for both of us actually, and you know who it's coming from?
Okay. Harshal Gore.
That's right. That's right. Harshal Gore. Harshal Gore from the UK. One of our favorite questionnaires.
It's like a wisdom of the sages celebrity.
Yeah. Okay. So here it goes. He says, in the Vedic teachings and in the Gita, There's a big emphasis on being tolerant. I understand the essence, but I want to dig a bit deeper. I typed in being tolerant in Google, and the following definition came up. To be tolerant means that you accept other people's opinions and preferences, even when they live in a way that you don't agree with. Tolerance also means that you don't put your opinions above those of others, even when you are sure that you are right. In principle, it makes a lot of sense. However, in practice, I think it's very challenging. Now, here's the essence of the question now. In a work or family situation, it's really hard to always be tolerant, especially with coworkers, staff, children, and parents. In many situations, I would be concerned that the individual would come across as weak, a pushover, or insignificant, which is very concerning in a parent-child relationship. Question to you both. How can someone be tolerant and still come across with a strong voice and maintain their solid reputation? That's the question, Raghunath. Please share your enlightened answer.
All right. How can someone be tolerant and still come across with a strong voice and maintain their solid reputation? I think that we have to be like generals, and we have to see the bigger picture. Like with kids, that's a whole thing, being tolerant of kids. When the kids are little, they will talk nonstop and ask you 10,000 questions that can drive you clinically insane. And there's a type of tolerance that we have to deal with that. And at the same time, there's if we're we're in the workplace and we're running an office, that's another type of tolerance. We're allowed to speak up if we have to instruct somebody. That's not being intolerant. But there's a certain point where we have to. I think with the spiritual life, we have to learn to mind our own business in a lot of situations, where I'm not just like giving everybody my 2 cents of how they should improve their life. I think this is where we sort of really go wrong. We mind other people's business and we forget about our own business. And a lot of what I find to be useful in my spiritual practice is worry about me, stop worrying about everybody else. Don't give people unsolicited advice. And truthfully, oftentimes with kids too, it's not like nagging kids is the best way to provoke change in them. It's really, truthfully, it's setting a good example. But sometimes with dependent.
Oh. I'm sorry, everybody. That was my mistake. I hit the wrong button on my phone and we just lost Raghunath. And I'll go ahead and I'll start to answer this question because this was asked to us both. And, just kind of following in what Raghunath was saying, he was saying not to be too concerned with other people and kind of being concerned with your own business. And in one sense, I agree that that's, tolerance has a lot to do with that. It's, being tolerant is the opposite of being the pushover, if you understand it right. It means that you are so strong. Like tolerance is it's a manifestation of one's strength, not one's weakness. So when Prabhupada would speak about tolerance, often he would even give the example of Haridas Thakur or Jesus Christ, people that were severely mistreated, and how that they didn't let that mistreatment disturb their consciousness, right? And I think that's how we can understand what tolerance is. It has to do with I won't allow my own discomfort or any external situation to become an obstacle in the path of my service, which is my essential contribution in life. So there may be difficult things that come up. There may be weather can be problematic. It can be hot one day, it can be cold the next day. People may say nice things about me one day, people may say not so nice things about me the other day, but I can tolerate it. I come into this, I move through the world with the understanding that there will always be problematic situations. And rather than say, spend all my time and energy trying to adjust this world to work according to my own comfort or to my own expectations of how I would prefer it to be, I can tolerate the fact that I know that I'll never be able to adjust it in exactly that way. So I'll tolerate that and then focus on what I want to get done, right? Focus on the service that I want to do. Focus on the contribution that I want to make. I'm willing to tolerate the obstacles that stand in the way of that. And so when we hear about, in the Srimad Bhagavatam, it gives the definition of a sadhu, the sadhu bhushana. What are the decorations? What are the ornaments of a sadhu, of a saint, you could say? And it begins with titikshava, tolerance. It says titikshava, karunaka, surida sarvadehinam, ajata satra shantaha, sadhava sadhubhushana. That the symptoms of the sadhu are that they are, first and foremost, tolerant, titikshava. And they're also karunaka, merciful. So merciful means they're making changes in the world where they see their suffering, they're there to help. But they're tolerant. They also understand that everything's not going to go their way in doing that. So I'll tolerate whatever discomforts there are. I'll tolerate whatever unpleasant circumstances there are. But because none of that's going to stop me from my focus. None of that's going to send me into constant complaining or expending tons of energy to try to make some kind of shift. I'm just going to tolerate what I need to tolerate and do what I need to do. And so also in the Bhagavad Gita, you also, right at the beginning of Krishna's instructions, he uses that same word titikshava. He says, matra sparshas tu kaunteya, shitojna sukha dukada, agama payano nityas, tams tiktikshasva bharata. That's Bhagavad Gita 2:14. He says, O Arjuna, the non-permanent appearance of happiness and distress and their disappearance in due course, pleasant and unpleasant things, they're like the appearance and disappearance of the winter and summer seasons. They rise from sense perception, and one must learn to tolerate them without being disturbed. So tolerance means I know the external situations are going to change. I know they're going to be pleasant one moment and unpleasant the next. That doesn't slow me down. That doesn't distract me. That doesn't send me off course. I stay focused on my course. And that course is, I'm going to be merciful. I'm going to be a kind friend to every living entity. I'm going to stay focused on my spiritual goals, my spiritual contribution, my spiritual services, regardless of the external circumstances. All right. Any luck with Raghu? Any news there, Mara?
Yeah, he's on Zoom. I've unmuted him.
I'm back.
Okay, but you're back on Zoom.
I was dropping one of my Himalayan enlightenment bombs on you.
I know. I think it's
under the Bodhi tree. What happened?
We need to get you back on the phone, Raghunath. There we go.
What's going on?
Okay, we're back up. Sorry about that, Raghunath. That was my fault.
Right.
Yeah. Okay,
That's all right.
I
was dropping some tolerance bombs on you.
I know. I couldn't tolerate them. All right, are you ready for the second question?
Sure.
Okay, this one's for you. And this one is coming from Tom, I think it's pronounced Breas, via Discord. Yeah, Tom Breas. And here it is. You ready? He says, I've been having a very difficult time professionally for some time now. And I'm trying to find inspiration from Krishna and A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami. I work as a director in a hospital. That's hard work, right?
It's hard work.
And that usually gives me a lot of satisfaction. It is a socially relevant and serving, especially now. I assume he means with COVID. But lately I have been constantly drawn into gossip, negativity, intrigues.
That's fun.
What kind of intrigues are going on in the hospital? For him, it's not
like
fun.
A whole soap opera in the hospital.
Yeah, I think they used to have soap operas about hospitals. General Hospital, right? He says,
General Hospital.
He says, it exhausts me completely. And it makes me do and say things that I regret afterwards. So I try to block all that out and dwell more on Krishna, read, listen, etc. I guess I'm looking for some Krishna conscious management advice. Is there something you could advise me to do, to read? Thanks a lot for your insights and response.
I think, Tom, that's a great question. On a spiritual path, expect stuff to get brought up. This has been an ongoing theme while we've been in Nepal, because we're very intensely diving into our spiritual life. And in Bhakti, it's not peaceful necessarily. We're not praying to God for peace. We're almost praying to purify ourselves. And in the process of house cleaning, the house gets dirtier before it gets cleaner. So the fact that you're even noticing this, most people don't notice it. Gossiping is fun. Intrigue is fun. People magazine is one big magazine that sells to tens of millions of people because people like to hear gossip and intrigue. So the fact that you're even questioning it is a sign like you're noticing something that is not that is not uplifting, it's not connecting, it's not being the best you, and you're checking it. So it's okay to notice. It's okay for the alcoholic to notice, man, I have a drinking problem. That's a wonderful thing. It doesn't make the problem go away, but in one sense, you can at least identify it. So there is, and we had this theme the other day, austerities of speech, and there's austerities of thought. And if something like gossip, it's not like we're going and doing something really ridiculous. We're not going and, buying drugs on the street, hard drugs, or going to a brothel or something. But we know that if we're trying to work on our higher consciousness, and we do, in fact, feel horrible after it's done, that's a place we just don't go anymore. We just don't go there with our words, with our speech. And what happens is, by zipping it up, people will stop speaking to you, because that dynamic goes back and forth. Like, I dig into her, and he also digs into her, and we go back, and that intrigue and that gossip feeds itself, and people will look for you. If you like to gossip, other people like to gossip will find you, and they'll dig into people. So once you stop going there, the dance can't happen any longer, and people will just stop going there with you. And also, it sort of sets the standard, like, I don't do this. I don't do this anymore. And guess what? You become unfun. That's okay. We're looking for a new circle of friends who don't want to go there. And it's beautiful when you can step back and notice that. Sometimes we have to get a little dirty to realize I don't want to play in the mud. So I think it's sort of beautiful, even though you feel the pinch of it right now. And you have to put up parameters. Who are those people? Where are those situations? Is it at lunch? Do you rather listen to an audiobook at lunch, or listen to a lecture at lunch, or find some people who don't want to go there? And once you say, I don't want to do that, I want to find other people, watch the universe send you those people. It's very powerful. You are not alone in the universe. There is challenges that get sent to us for our edification. And once you say, I don't do that anymore, I'm a spiritual being, then new people are going to show up in your life. And then you're going to get another challenge. And this is how the game works. We're always put through tests. And if you pass that test, we get the next test. If you pass that test, you get the next test. And you know what happens? We are slowly, whether you call it Bhagavan, God, Source, the universe, is slowly leading us out of the very petty material world. And that's what's happening to you right now. And it's quite beautiful to witness, as much as it might stink. That's my answer.
Wow. Raghunath, your time there in the mountains has changed you. You've gone deeper still.
Well, it's very pleasurable since I've been enlightened. It's been much better. Everything's been better in my life.
Okay.
Food tastes better. People are sweeter. Better relationship with my son. It's great.
Okay, good. Beautiful. Thank you for that answer.
Thank you. Thank you, Tom. Mara, can you ask Kaustubha's question, please?
So Kaustubha, the next question comes from Matilda in Sweden.
Okay, Matilda.
She says, Hare Krishna, Haribol, thank you for today's show. I believe I speak for all of us when I say your service is benefiting us greatly, making the Bhagavatam fun and easier to digest. I was wondering about something I've heard in a previous episode, that when hugging someone, we get influenced by their karma. If this is the case, wouldn't bowing down to touch someone's feet be a great offense? I'm so far from being a liberated soul. Surely someone wouldn't want to get mixed up in my karma energy. Please, could you bring some clarity on this matter?
Okay. It's an interesting question. And she's saying that if you hug someone, you get influenced by their karma. And saying bowing down to touch someone's feet. Now, bowing down to touch someone's feet, you see that in the yoga text, right? You'll see that again and again. You see that it describes, say, if you read Srimad Bhagavatam, if you read Mahabharata, you'll read in their descriptions of how people associate with one another. And within the yoga culture, there's this idea of respect. Like, for instance, how does a person relate to someone who's like senior to them? And senior can be understood in different ways. It could be senior in age. It could be senior in learning. In a sense, in behavior, I might see someone in a sense like as my superior, let's say. And how do I meet that person? How do I greet that person? How do I behave in what is the nature of how I relate to that person? How do I relate to someone who's junior than me, maybe younger than me, or less learned, less farther along the path? What's the etiquette for that? And how do I relate with people who are more or less my peers? And you see this, you can see that like Vyasadeva, who compiled this literature, he consciously, again and again in different places, showed the nature of these relationships. That where, for instance, the junior shows respect to the senior. And a very common way that it's done, you'll read it in these texts, but you'll also, to this day, still see it in Indian culture, is that they touch someone's feet. So like if you go to an airport in India, you'll see you used to see this more because people were like meeting in airports. Now it's kind of like you leave the airport and you go like right into your car or something like that, but it used to be like you would greet the person at the gate. And you would see all the time that like you could see, someone's parents just arrived, and their grown adult children are touching their feet and then touching it to their head or to the heart. It's symbolic. In one sense, it's symbolic of a show of respect. And just showing respect in that way, built into that etiquette, it's training us, it's training our minds how to think like a yogi, how to think like a Vaishnava, how to think like a Bhakti-yogi. It's through the physical action, one's cultivating a certain type of a mental, through what we're doing physically, it's affecting us on the level of the mind. So juniors show respect to seniors, and seniors show affection and compassion to juniors. And in this way, you can build a very beautiful society. Now, so therefore, Matilda, you're saying for you to touch someone's feet, isn't that an offense? No, it's not at all an offense. It's a show of respect that you're showing to someone. But might they get some of my karma? Well, now there's a talk. So I described something on the practical level. There's also descriptions. That's something that I can't elaborate too much on. But there is this idea that the junior can the senior, particularly in the case of one's guru, let's say, that they can take on the karma or they can burn the karma of that disciple. And again, let's look at it practically. That if there's someone that I see that's a great human being, someone that I see is very devoted to God, someone who I see has set aside their own concerns to be compassionate and care for others, and they're living a life where they're embracing they're embodying all the beautiful qualities of a yogi, then when I take the stance or commit myself to serving them, that very commitment burns my karma, because my karma is there to correct me, right? The way the law of karma works is it's meant to kind of like get me right. When I'm going on the wrong path, it kind of puts me back on the right path. But when I make that conviction, I want to serve the great souls. Essentially, it's saying there's no more need for this karma anymore because I've gotten myself on that right path. I've made a commitment. I have that conviction. So I'm describing that in a practical way, how it relieves us of karma. There may be some mystical way too. There may be something, energetic, within the body, that when I touch the feet of that person, that there's some transferal or something like that. These texts do speak of that. I can't speak at great length on that. But I just share all this to say for Matilda, don't think of it that way. The way that we see people thinking in these texts is like, you're a great soul. I need to be relieved of my karma. And by karma, I'm not only talking about bad things that are going to happen to me or unpleasant things that are going to happen to me, but I'm also talking about the karmic mentalities that are very deeply entrenched in my mind. So if by bowing down to you, by touching your feet, I become relieved of these negative patterns of thought that I've been a slave to for who knows how many lifetimes, then let me touch your feet. And I'm eager to touch your feet. I'm eager to externally express my need for your help, my need for your words of wisdom, my need for your guidance. And so that has something to do with the relationship between, disciple and guru. It's like that. So one's not thinking, oh, I'm committing offense. One's thinking like, no, I need your help. and I recognize that. And so that external display of touching the feet is an expression like that. It's a healthy one, rather than a problematic one. I hope that's helpful. It's about as best I can do with it. Raghunath, you're giving me a thumbs up, so I feel good. When the enlightened one gives me the thumbs up, I know I'm on the right track.
You're doing very good, my son.
Thank you. Okay, so now I have a question. This is for the both of us.
Do you mind if I just call you my son from now on?
I would love that. Oh, master. Okay. This one is coming from one of our favorite people. Are you ready? Krishna Drew.
Oh, yes.
Krishna Drew.
Oh, Krishna Drew. We love Krishna Drew.
That's what I'm telling you.
Another wisdom of the sage is celebrity.
A wisdom of the sage and daily Zoomer. And just a very dedicated woman, just like I see nothing but good qualities in this woman, I see nothing but good qualities. So here we go. Here's her question. She asks, last weekend on a walk with a friend, I got overwhelmed with the beauty of spring and I started praising the Lord of his creations. My friend said, you Hare Krishnas are always into beautiful flowers and food and deity dressing, etc. Things that don't look so beautiful are also the Lord's creation. Oh, you're going to like this one, Raghu. Like skulls or worms or snakes. Why not also offer those to the Lord? If Pandita Samadarshana is the ultimate goal, why judge? In other words, if seeing everything equally is part of our yogic aspiration, then why judge this is better than the other? How would Kaustubha and Raghunath answer this question? Hit it, Raghunath.
What a great question, huh?
Yeah.
Do you want me to go first?
Yes, please.
Great question, Krishna Drew. Well, there's two ways we look at things. First, there's the material realm. Then there's the spiritual realm. Within the material realm, from what I understand, as you promote yourself through the gunas to sattva, you will get a different understanding of beauty than if you were in tamaguna, the mode of darkness or ignorance. And I think it's coming because, but this is my idea, it's coming from because there is an absolute standard of beauty. And you get a glimpse into that as your senses become purified through sattva. Now, don't get me wrong. There's beauty, and there is fun, and there's music, and there's enjoyment, all in tamagun. But there's also that in sattvagun. So, yeah, if you look at a snake, in one sense, a snake or even a spider, they're actually quite beautiful. But and so is a hummingbird, or so is a quetzal or a peacock. They're all also quite beautiful. So in the material world, depending on what guna we're in, we'll find an attractiveness towards that thing. In sattva, it'll change differently. Now the thing is, we are not aiming for sattva guna, or the mode of goodness and the mode of regulation, the mode of steadiness and self-control. And we're not aiming for tamas or rajas. We're aiming for transcendence. And in transcendence, we are asked to see every being as pandita samadarshana, or seeing with equal vision. Matter of fact, there's so many stories of great sages cursing those who don't see with equal vision. You have to take birth again for offending someone who's, there was a great king who offended Astavakra and had to take birth as a demon to purify their mentality. Or there's a story of, was it Muchakunda? I can't remember. But the idea is that, we're not supposed to see. We're supposed to be above that. And we're supposed to see beauty and spirit in all bodies, in all, whether people are rich or whether they're poor, whether they're privileged or unprivileged, because ultimately that's not them anyway. So for the devotee, we're supposed to see. Now for Krishna, there is an absolute standard of what he likes, and that's clearly described in the Vedas. And that's why we don't say, hey, Krishna, we made you some fried worms as an offering. We're offering you leaf, flower, fruit, incense. There are scents that he likes. And so there is like, I'd say a progression of beauty, but still that's of the material world. And I think it has some place in the absolute realm as well. And we get a glimpse into that as we purify our consciousness. But as practitioners, we should have respect, dignity, and love for all beings, whether it's like an ugly oyster. They're sort of ugly, right? Or like a doe-eyed cow. What do you think about that answer?
I like it, Raghunath. Thank you for that. Yeah. You know,
Okay.
you're enlightened. What can I say?
You can't argue with enlightenment.
I'll share a graphic example that'll help. It's funny because even in Sri Chaitanya's pastimes, we see this play out, right? When he was a little boy, and once he ate clay, and his mother came and said, hey, what are you eating clay for? Well, it's all the same thing, isn't it? Like, whatever you eat is just a transformation of the earth, right? Like if you're eating an apple, or if you're eating a string bean or whatever, it's all growing. It's the ingredients of the earth that are, okay, but they transform in different ways, right? So like, let's take a woman, let's say she's a mother, and she eats food, right? Let's say she eats a plate of, Asian stir fry. One of my favorites at Divya's Kitchen, by the way. This is a plug for Divya's Kitchen. But so she eats that food, and that food is going to enter into her digestive system, and then her body's going to break it down, and then it's going to manifest in her body in different ways. Some of it will manifest as blood. Some of it will manifest as urine. Some of it will manifest as feces. Some of it will manifest as milk in her breasts. And when she goes to feed her child, she's going to feed her the milk from her breast, right? She's not going to feed that child any other transformation of that very same energy, right? It's the same energy, but it's manifesting in different ways. One way, if she fed it to her child, it would be very unpleasant and very unhealthy. And another way, it's very pleasant and very nourishing. So the same material energy is manifesting, in different transformations for sure. So the ingredients that make up the worm are more or less the same ingredients that make up the flour, but we offer the flour because it's taken on a form that's very pleasant for the person that we're offering it to. So if Krishna Jew, if you were to say to your friend, why don't you come over for dinner to my home tomorrow? And then you throw a plate of worms in front of that person, then maybe they'll understand why, like why we're taking a particular interest. So bhakti it's a very personal practice. The idea is I want to please God, and I want to offer God what pleases God. And that's going to be sattvic manifestations. And as Raghunath was saying, and we look in these literatures and we see what, from the absolute perspective, what does the absolute truth appreciate as an offering? And that'll be a flower, or that'll be a beautiful, fragrant, offering of food, and not something that's so. There's some adarshana on one level. And then there's the more esoteric level where you want to please the one that you're that you're worshiping, or the one that you're connected to, your very source. So we have equal vision on one level. We can see this is the same material energy that one day, you take water that's sitting in the ocean, it gets evaporated up into the air, and now it's that same water is in the form of like vapor, floating around in the form of a cloud, and then the wind blows that cloud over the land, and that water remanifests, as water, and falls to the ground in the form of rain. And then that water goes through the earth, picking up like all the minerals of the earth, the different flavors and the different nutrients in the earth. And then one plant will pull that water into its body and pull the ingredients of the earth through that water into its body and manifest as a mango, a delicious, sweet, fragrant fruit. And, another plant will pull that exact same water with those exact same ingredients in and manifest, as like a thorn bush or as a bitter melon or, or some other manifestation. We're going to eat one and we're not going to eat the other because of the particular, we know it's made of the same ingredients, but it's formed in a different way, Okay.
I love your answer. It's better than mine, considering you're not enlightened yet.
Well, it was because I heard you speak first. I was in the presence of the enlightened one.
You're doing very good on your path. Keep going forward.
Thank you. Oh, Master, could I ask you another question?
Please do.
This one is coming from Mark Park via Discord. Mark Park.
Wouldn't it be great? I wonder if parents consciously thought that name. You know what? Our last name's Park. Let's name the kid Mark.
Maybe, I don't know.
You think?
Well, this is a Discord name, so I don't know if it's their actual name, but it could be.
Oh, okay. It could be Mark Park.
Yeah. So Mark Park via Discord asks, my question is, when we become more involved with bhakti, are we expected to give away our interests that are considered material? Do we have to do that?
Yeah.
Yep, you do.
Sober, Mark Park.
He says, someone like myself loves to watch motorsports. Can I still enjoy watching cars race while living a life devoted to Krishna?
No.
Cut the cord?
You can't, Mark. It's over. Right. Motorsports, Indy 500, all that stuff, it's over. It's dead. No, just kidding. You can do whatever you want. How about that? You can do whatever you want. What do you think about that? We can do whatever we want in this world and just move forward in your spiritual life. And then certain things we'll just lose a taste for. We'll lose a taste for, and certain things we'll get attached for. What we don't want to happen is, at that moment of death, to be thinking about whatever attachment we have. I have a motorcycle. I like my motorcycle. I don't want to be thinking about, my motorcycle. Oh, I'm dying. I'm meditating on a motorcycle. We want to be connected. And, but it's natural. There's people and we're all different. I know Kaustubha, you know what he likes to do? He likes to sit and read. And he could do that for hours upon hours upon hours. If I was to do that, I would lose my marbles. But that's what he is, and I appreciate him. And you know what? We're all carved differently in this world. But there are people that are historically, that were great spiritual kings. And the kings did so many different things. And they were masters of astrology, masters of mathematics, masters of, you could speak multiple language, masters of warfare, masters of, how to ride a horse and chariot. It's not like these guys just read scripture all day. They had hobbies. They were within the world. They had big families, and they had a connection. And so as long as you have a spiritual connection, all the other hobbies will fit into place. And what will happen is, naturally, as we are going through something in our life, which we go through some heartbreak, we go through some loss, we go through some, maybe we get ourselves, we get ill, and we get ready to, we're getting older, we're getting some chronic illness. We will naturally see what is really solid in my life. Like, if I love the New York Yankees, and I'm not going to want to watch them. If I'm cultivating spiritual life, I'm not going to want to probably watch them on my deathbed. I want to probably go to something more spiritual. So I think it's important to cultivate that spiritual life side by side with all your other desires. And some of those desires can be an impediment, a real impediment, but some of them won't be.
So there's degrees. You're saying there's degrees, and there's degrees in how distracting or how problematic.
Sure. There's good clean fun out there. I will say that. There's good clean fun, and depending where you're at. And I never worry about. I worry about putting the good in instead of getting the bad out. Does that make sense?
Well, that makes a lot of sense. In other words, you're saying there are certain things in life that are super problematic, that are really going to affect your ability to focus your mind on God and to have a taste for that and so on. You got to cut those things out of your life. And then there are other things that are like, they're not bhakti, but they're distractions, but they're not super problematic. And so if you can eliminate those really problematic ones and then just focus on, you were saying putting the good in, like, let me read Bhagavatam every day. Let me and some japa every day. Let me do some kirtan every day. And as I begin to develop a taste for that, then motorsports at a certain point, I'll just let it go naturally. Is that what you're saying?
Yeah. Yeah, and people still have those things. People have those things for their life. I don't think people will necessarily even give up those things, but they'll lean as their real shelter is something more spiritual. But yeah, if I have a cup of poison, I got to get rid. Here, you're right. Those real heavy things you got to get rid of because they could wreck your life, and we get that. And right, everybody accepts that.
Those are the cups of poison.
Yeah, things that are really going to wreck your life. But then there's certain things we just keep that good flowing in, and naturally, other things will become either less important or they'll stay around in the periphery of your life. But yeah, I wouldn't sweat it. That's a great question, though.
Okay.
I'm into good, clean fun, personally.
Like
we were just hiking in the mountains. It's like sattvic and pleasurable and good for you, and rising early and taking cold showers and climbing stairs and being around good people and laughing together and
climbing stairs.
I like this. It's like it wasn't 100% spiritual, so to speak, but it connected me. It made me joyful.
Right. Okay. As long as you're enlightened, so you're always feeling joyful.
That's a good point there, sir.
Okay. All right. We have one more. We have another question. Maybe Mara can read it. This is a question for me from Lalita.
Yes. This question is for you, Kaustubha. She says, please accept my humble obeisances. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. I am involved in a spiritual community. I've been involved with this community for decades. Sometimes I try to report managerial type problems to the management, and I receive the reply, that's just not happening. Utter denial. After tolerating a problem for as long as possible, but knowing that the behavior of others could cause legal issues with government agencies, I feel the need to ask for simple adjustments. But the management just tried to turn it around and say that I am causing problems. How to endure this behavior from those who are supposed to be setting good examples? It's difficult to fight for one's own sense of dignity and self-worth while trying desperately to not make offenses to the people who are appointed to be in charge. I feel so foolish for constantly looking up to people and being blown away by their defensiveness. How to see good in those that hurt us. How to continue giving to a broken system. Is Krishna really happy if I just let the problems continue? I want to be a warrior and fight for decent behavior and safe rules, but no one understands my viewpoint, and thus they do not see the dangers that I am not making up. Also, sometimes people tell me that I'm too strong of a person. Maybe I need to change my voice or something. What makes me so hard to accept? Lord, give us strength. Thank you for your sweet bickering. I love to hear the respect and intimacy of your friendships.
Oh, thank you, Lalita. Lalita, I sympathize with what you're going through. You're saying yourself, you kind of left at the end there that just that thought that, well, you know what, some people tell me that I'm like a little too much sometimes. So, I don't know if I know you, and I don't know your situation, where you are in the world, who you're dealing with. So I can't sit here and pass judgment whether you're right or they're right or whatever. So, but what I can try to do is just share some general ideas about the situation that you've described. And I get the situation that you're describing for sure. I've witnessed this kind of dynamic for sure. So let's, essentially, I think the most important question coming out is how to endure behavior from behavior that's less than exemplary, from people who you want to see as being good examples, people that you're investing some faith in. So let me preface it with this first, is by saying there's some things like you're describing, they're doing things that are like technically illegal, and it can get them in trouble. And I'm trying to alert them to this, and they're not taking it seriously. So first, I want to say there's some things that are on a level where, if they're not taking you seriously, you got to go and find somebody else to take you seriously, like certain illegal activity. Let's say like child abuse or something serious. Then you got to find the person that's going to listen, for sure. But I'm assuming it's not something like that you're describing. Like, it's like, hey, don't you realize you're breaking code, 304 in the book on zoning or something like that. And sooner or later there's an inspector that's going to come here and you're going to have to pay a fine. If it's something like that, it's not quite as desperate. So you're doing what you are trying to do to bring attention to that issue. Maybe you're right. It is an issue and it needs to be taken seriously. Maybe you're not right. I don't know. But let's assume that you are right. Let's assume that what you brought up is worthy of consideration and needs to be corrected. You do what you can do, right? You inform the people that you need to inform. Maybe you even have to put it in writing so they'll take it a little bit more seriously. Like I just want, respectfully, I want to inform you, and I want this to go on the record that you've been informed that this is, illegal, and that this can cause some serious problem down the road. And I brought it to you. Maybe you need to bring it to a higher managerial authority. That's a possibility too, right? I've brought this to their attention. They're not listening, but I think it's going to lead to some problem down the road. So that's all there on the practical level. I want to address more of it seemed like the spiritual issue that you're feeling through this, that I'm in part of a spiritual community. I'm expecting spiritual people not to be in denial of things. I'm expecting them to be reasonable and not to act out in patterns of ignorance. But here I am in this quote unquote spiritual community, and I see that these people seem to be, acting with a type of behavior that's I would hope for better. So let's get one thing clear right off the bat, that if you go into a community expecting that everyone's behavior is going to be free from fault, you're definitely going to be disappointed. I don't know if I've come across any community in the world like that. So we do have to adjust our expectations, right? We do have to say, this is a community that's that I feel is embracing important values, that has noble goals, and so on, that is based on truth. But as Raghunath was saying earlier in the show, when you're getting into the shower, you're still dirty, right? So there are people there will be people within a spiritual community that say, I like these values and I want to live this life. And then when they're given responsibility, they're still operating with a lot of their ignorance or negative patterns that they've had their whole life. And until they're enlightened, until Raghunath has taken them by the hand to Annapurna, and they've seen that vision, they still have work to do. Right? Yeah. So he's giving blessings right now. Thank you, Reverend. And so we have to have our expectations straight. We want to benefit from what is there. Is there still, even though there are people in that spiritual community that are disappointing you on one level, is there still value in that spiritual community that's helpful for you, that's transformational for you? If so, then there's no need to give up. And even within those people, right, even within the people that are disappointing you, can you still see good qualities in them, qualities that are admirable, qualities that you want to emulate, qualities that are helpful for you on your spiritual path to associate with? Okay, well then let's adjust our expectations. These people aren't necessarily going to fulfill all my expectations of what spiritual people are. I've got that. I've adjusted to that. I'm going to enter into this community recognizing it's not going to be all that I hope for. And you know what? I got to look in the mirror sometimes and recognize maybe I'm not all that others are hoping for too. And I'm not going to dwell on the shortcomings of others, right? If it's serious enough and if it's seriously disappointing enough that I feel like, actually, this is kind of toxic. It's not, when I weigh the whole thing out, there's more negative here than there is positive. Then you may not want to actively participate in that community. You can make that decision. But what you don't want to do is don't allow another person's, don't allow their shortcomings to become your excuse for giving up or your excuse for going into negative thought patterns where you're just complaining and criticizing nonstop. If you can change it, say what you have to say, change it. Set your expectations right. Don't expect that everything's going to be rosy. If it's too negative, remove yourself from it if you have to. Find another community. Find the people within that community that you feel are helpful, and they'll become your close associates, and you can tolerate the rest. And but ultimately, don't allow it to send you into the negativity. Don't allow it to keep your mind dwelling on criticism, or that's ultimately that's going to just kind of rot away at the depth of your own spiritual thought of where your mind is. So all these things are things to consider. Every situation is going to be a little different, but we do the best we can, And with
I think, Kaustubha, it's safe to say we've been part of spiritual communities that have been, it just depends on who the leaders are. And it doesn't mean they're necessarily evil. It just means that they can't manage things well. And it's important. I would look at it as Maya is trying to make us make offenses. So best to either trade in those expectations for appreciations, or just you're going to have to maybe move away out of that community if it's really intolerable. What do you think? I mean, I heard what you thought, but I just wanted to say we've been there before in those communities. And
I'm I associate with communities like that to this day. There are communities that I associate with that, there's a lot of disappointment, but I just try to, you got to be a little bit like a bumblebee when you're on this bhakti path. You fly in through there, you avoid, and you try to just go right in there for that pollen, for the nectar, right? And you extract the best out of it. We may find ourselves, in communities that are like that, where I just got to navigate my way through this and find what's helpful for me and let the rest go,
Yeah.
All right. And Raghunath, with that, O Enlightened One.
Yes.
We move on. Okay. Now, we're going to be back tomorrow. I'll be interviewed by Balaram Perez tomorrow and Tuesday and probably the next day. So that's 5 a.m., just like the normal time. All right? Pop in if you can, Raghu.
We're going to try to. We're going to be in Kathmandu.
Okay. Oh, you're going to Kathmandu.
We're going to Kathmandu. Is that a great name? Kathmandu.
Unless they wrote the song about it.
Kathmandu.